Hi everyone. So you're welcome to another class. So I'm just going to go straight, share my screen. Okay, I believe you all can see my screen. So we're on chapter 15 of this book. Topic is layout. So we'll go straight into it and discuss what we have. We're going to be using another site called W3 Schools. I pulled it up so that we can maybe better show you a clearer example. So maybe you can always use W3 Schools. It's a nice site as well if you want to look at anything code easily and all that, and then the language. But here we are, key concepts in positioning elements. CSS treats is a very key point you should know. CSS treats each HTML element as if it's in its own box. This box will either be a block level box or an inline box. So I'll suggest you guys go through this document and understand how it works. But then when we say block level elements, it's when you use tags like H1, paragraphs, you can see the way it appears. If you want to see what it looks like, try to give a paragraph a background. You see that it looks like a block, right? So H1s, paragraphs, ULs, LIs, divs, section, and the list goes on. But then inline flows in between surrounding text. That's where you get to use bold, italic tag, image tags. So what it means is like you can use bold within, you can use this bold tag within a text, you understand? So you can use them just as it is in this example, right? You can use them within a text and your text will still remain the way it is, like still on the same line, it's still inline. That's why it's called an inline element. But block level, if you use a paragraph anywhere, it creates a block there, sort of already, you understand? So for instance, let's say this is a paragraph, right? Lorem ipsum, whatever. And let's say within this place, you try to add a paragraph. Automatically, it will break off. It will create like a block inside. So it's not like your bold or your EM tag or your italic tag or whatever tag that will still be on the same line when you call it. So if you use a bold tag, everything, the line will still be there to just affect only the text. But if you now use a block level element like paragraph, it creates a block there, sort of. So it will break off this paragraph and create another paragraph. And let's say you're trying to create another paragraph in the paragraph. So it won't be in the same line again. So it doesn't flow in between surrounding text when it's a block. It starts on a new line entirely. That's what it means. So you can look at this and try to create. So far, I've seen what you guys have been doing, the pages you've been creating, and they've been really, really super cool. I commend you guys on what you've been doing so far. Really super cool. But I would suggest maybe at your spare time, you can try to create something like this and see what it looks like. You know, but we go right into the layout proper right now. So we talk about normal flow, we talk about relative positioning. This moves an element from the position it would be in normal flow, shifting it to the top, right, bottom, or left. That's relative. Normal flow remains normal, everything remains how it's supposed to appear. You understand? Absolute means it doesn't respect any part, so it can be on any part of the page, like it flows. It can be on any part of the page, you understand? But the good thing is that it moves as users scroll up and down the page. So, but it's just that it can flow. For instance, this lorem ipsum here is absolute. So it's not, don't worry, let's just get straight into it. So you get to, let me use an example. So I would suggest you guys read these, though it's an example that will kind of help you guys understand this better, right? Normal flow, paragraphs appear one after the other. Relative positioning, if you style this right now, give it whatever second, you notice that second paragraph pushes, but this lorem ipsum on top here is absolute, like it's floating, it's on top of. So once you position something and make it absolute, it doesn't respect any, it's just this, it's like floating, like something on top of the whole thing anymore. It's not like trying to conform to a paragraph before it or a div after it. So that's one thing with floating. But this guy is fixed. So as it is here, once you scroll up and down, this guy remains here. So let's just get straight into it. And then now when you talk about things overlapping, for instance, you want a div to be behind that div, for instance, that's where the Z index comes in. So if you make, let's say a div, give a div a Z index of let's say 100, and then give another div a Z index of maybe 80. The div with the Z index of 80 will automatically be behind, while the div with the Z index of 100 comes to the front. So that's just what the index property means. It's used to stack. That's the word. Used to stack div how you want it to be, or an element how you want it to, or how you want it to overlap. So now let's look at position, property position, the value static. You guys can try this out and see what they look like. When you make, by default, a page comes as static. Position of a page, your web page comes as static by default. So you might not need to do anything or specify position static. By default, it's static. But then relative, let's say this is a paragraph. This is one paragraph here. And then this is the second paragraph. So if you make, what's that paragraph name? I'm not seeing paragraph example here. I'm not seeing paragraph example. Okay, but you know what? Let's okay, let me use this stuff from W3 schools to explain static. I've talked about static already. It's not positioned in any special way. It's always positioned according to the normal flow of the page. Yeah, relative. An element with position relative is positioned relative to its normal position. For instance, this is a paragraph or a div. Let's say this is a div, right? And then you can try it yourself. We click here, you get to it. Let's see. So let's run it. So you can see now this stuff was given a position of relative left, was given a left property of 30px. So because the position is relative, it's shifted, it's added 30px to the left, right? So if I add, make it 50, for instance, and run it, but let's make it 100 and run, you can see what happens. So that's because the position is relative. Because it's relative, once you add anything to it, it adjusts itself relative to the position of where it is, you understand? So this position relative to its normal position. So the normal position is supposed to be here. Because it's relative, if you add anything to it, to the right, to the left, or whatever, let's say I add something to the right. Oh, sorry. Let's say I add maybe 40px to the right and run it. May not show. I think that's just the biggest. So, but I don't know if you get what I mean, but yeah, but that's what this practically means. Like you can play around with something relative. As you do it, you get to see the space or whatever you add to it because the position is relative. So it's relative to its normal position. But then when we go to fixed, I'm going to close this now. So when you make something fixed, right, it stays there. I believe you guys have seen, okay, for instance, this is the website I did. You can see the top bar, right, is fixed. The top is fixed. The position is fixed. That's why when I scroll, every other thing scrolls underneath it, right? You see that the top is fixed. So that's what fixed does. When you say position fixed, where is it? So we can try out this one and see what it looks like. You can see this. Okay, this other one is fixed to the bottom, right? I wish this page was long enough. You notice that this guy will still remain where it is because it's fixed. This is where they style the fix, right? This is the div that was fixed. Remember, you can call this anything. It's just a class name. For instance, triple G. But here you're going to make it triple G or quadruple G. So it's just a class name. So you can decide to style whatever you want to style and give it a position of fixed. And it's going to stick to that place where it is. That's what fixed does. And then we have something else. Absolute, yes. Absolutely. Let me use this stuff on this website. You see this chart stuff right here. See it. You can see that stuff right there. It's absolute, right? It's looking kind of fixed, but it's absolute because it's everywhere on the page. You can see it's like on top of everything on the page. It's floating on top of the page. It's not relative to any positioning, right? So that's what absolute does. So another thing that I want to talk about for fixed, I know you might be wondering, okay, why is it this way? Why is fixed that way? Fixed is relative to the viewport, which means it always stays in the same place, even if the page is scrolled. It's relative to the viewport, to the screen itself, the viewport. So that's why when I do this, it stays there, like the heading stays there, right? Meanwhile, position absolute is relative to the nearest positioned ancestor instead of position relative to the viewport, like fixed. So it's nearest ancestor. That's why most times when you're doing a positioning, you get to use sort of like a Z index to do your positioning. Because if you don't do that, if you don't use the Z index, sometimes if something else, let's say, for instance, let's say this stuff right here has a Z index of 80 and maybe this div here has a Z index of 90 or 100. It's going to cover this box. It's going to cover this round chart stuff. So that's why most times when you use position absolutes, try to still use the index to pop out that div or whatever you want to pop out to make sure it stands out where you want it to be. And it's going to obey you because you made the position absolute. So that being said, okay, we've talked about the index already. Use it to state how you want something to be stacked, right? You can see this stuff is overlapping because the Z index is 10 of the H1, Z index H1, 10. So, but if I make the Z index of this page, this paragraph here, if I make it 80, it's going to cover the evolution of the bicycle. It's going to come on top of it. But right here, you can see that it's on top of the paragraph itself. So that's what the index does for you. And then I believe you guys must have used your floats, told you guys to read this up and play with them. And I've seen the projects you guys have done. So floats, you use float to state where you want an element to be, where you want to where you want it to be. Do you want it to go to the right or you want it to go to the left? You use the float to achieve that. So you can float something to the left, it goes to the left. So if you have like 3 divs, and maybe div 1, you float it to the left. If you float div 2 to left again, it's not going to float to the left of div 1, right? So it's like a box 1. And then if you float box 1 to the left, it comes to the extreme left. Let's say there's no div there. There's a div, maybe it's a box 1 div, you float it to the left, it goes there. If you float another box 2 div, it's supposed to come to the left. It floats itself. If you float it left, it floats itself to the left of div 1. So it's floating to the left of what's the element that's before it, right? So it's kind of like related to the element that's before it. So if there's something there, a div there already, maybe let's say you have, I think I need to, let me just see if I can create something simple. Let's do something simple. That will help us. Text lesson. Okay. There's a text lesson. So let me create like a little box here. Call it this. Okay. Okay, now I'm just going to have to create a fresh div. So you guys might need to take off all these codes to make everything. Let's create it. So I'm doing internal styling. I'll suggest you go ahead and do external styling if you want. So let me create a div. Call it hey. Create a second div. Call it name. Let's give this div an ID of let me call it box 1, for instance. Box 1. Let me call this guy box 2. Box 2. So let me just go straight up and style an ID, right? So I use hashtag, say box 1. Let's give it width of 400 px. Give it a height of maybe 800 px, for instance. And let me replicate this. I want to style it differently. So let me give this guy background color. Yellow. Give this guy background color of green, for instance. Sorry, box 2. Box 1, you can see box 1 and then this box 2. So the positions are static. So that's why they're starting, both of them are starting on the left-hand side of the page. But I'm just trying to show you guys what float looks like. So now if I say float this guy, box 2, float left. So just watch and see what's going to happen. Sorry. Okay, right. Sorry. Here. you go. You see that? Excuse me. So if I float, because I floated this first guy to the left, I floated this other guy to the left, it floated itself to the left of this. You see that now? So same thing, if I float it to right, it goes to the right. So watch. Wow, see that? So that's what float does for you. It's just like a flag. So, okay. What else is left for us to talk about? Clearing floats. Yeah, if you use the clear property, just the way it is there, clear left. That means you don't want any element within to touch the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the box, right? Clear. So you can decide to do clear left, clear right, or clear both. Right, so this is an example. I don't know if, okay. What's the name of this paragraph? Well, I'll suggest you guys just go ahead and try out this whole stuff. These are things that you try out, just the way that I've done same for what do you call it now? The float. Go ahead and do the same for clear, just try out your clear left, clear right, clear both. And if there's none, that means elements can touch either side. So I'll suggest you guys do all this. And then if you have any issues, if you run into any challenges, feel free to get back to me and I'll be willing to help you guys out. So we've touched some of these things in the past with flow, margin. So I'm going to give you an exercise that will help you play around with some of these things, and then you guys will get to see how it works. Alternatively, like I said, if there are some concepts you want to just quickly look up online, for instance, what should we look at now? So W3 schools has search. So for instance, let's say CSS, let's say Clear, for instance. Clear property. Click on it, shows you how to use Clear. So you can run it, open one and see what it looks like. Right. See what happened just there. So this is how to use W3 schools, just in case you're online and then you want to try out something and see what's happening here on the side. So if you see none, just watch it. None. See both. So what I'm actually doing is affecting just this other paragraph here called the class is clear. See what it looks like. So these are things that you might just need to play around with. Then I just tested out Clear and you saw what it worked, how it works. So that's how to use like W3 schools to do things. Maybe a bit confused and then you want to just play around with something like that. But the best bet is always to go ahead and use this stuff in your just create, just like I played with float, just create something simple and then see how it works. Or right, I use W3 school. There are lots of other websites out there that you might want to use if you like. So you can read up screen sizes. So just like every device has screen size, screen resolution, right? So if you check out a website on your phone, the phone most times has a resolution of 960 to 640. This for like iPhone. So every phone has its resolution. iPad has 1024 by 768. You might see something else that have like 1200 and above. So that's just it. Okay, this is a MacBook, a 27-inch Mac. You can see the size 27 inches. It has an edition of this. A MacBook of 13 inches has 1280 by 800 pixel, and the list goes on. So you might just need to read up this. There's the little information that you guys might need to understand. But as time goes on, you will learn how to maybe start creating responsive websites or web pages that will respond in a way when it's opened on any device. So if you want, I believe you've seen stuff like this. So let me show you a little example. So this laptop is about 1280, I think it's about 1368 or thereabouts. The width. So, and then the forgotten what the height is, but that's by the way. Now let's say if I do Control Shift M, you'll see what this page will look like. I'm using Firefox anyway, so if you're using Firefox, you get to see. So you can see what it looks like on a mobile device. What it looks like. And now my menu does not spread out again, just the way it was. And now this is what the menu looks like. So up here, I'm using iPhone 12 to check it out. So I might use an iPad and see what it looks like on iPad. See that? So these are some of the things you guys might need to start learning with time. And if I open this, menu spreads out. So that's about it. So you just try read up things about layouts. It's quite informative. And then yeah, something called liquid layouts designs. The stretch and contract as the user increases the size of the browser. You understand? So that makes it liquid. So when I try to see what just happened right now. See? So as I stretch, or contract, you can see the menu changes immediately. So it's responsive, that's what it's called as well. Or liquid, if you want to call it liquid. So that should be it for layouts. So you can just try out these examples. This is an example of a fixed width layout. Fixed width means no matter the device you put it on or whatever, it maintains that same width. Or like the website I just showed you now, it has a liquid layout. So as you drag your browser or you try to do it on a smaller device, it tries to change itself. So you can see the CSS that does that. Now, one other thing is I need to point out is for fixed width layout, you notice that you can see the padding 5px, the margin 10px, width 300px, and blah blah blah. So most of the things here are fixed, like px for the most part is for fixed stuff. But once you look at the liquid design, you see the changes now. Things are now done in percentages, in EMs. See that EMs. So no more PX anymore. So what this means is as your viewport is reducing or increasing, these sizes change depending on the viewport. You understand? So that's what makes it liquid. So PX is used for things that you want when you want to do a fixed width design or fixed height or anything fixed. But values like EM, percentage, REM, VW, VH, these are used for fluid designs. Like if you want to make a fluid width or height or whatever, anything that you want any div or whatever that you want to grow or shrink, but it's going to be based on the viewport or the size of the screen or browser and all that. That's when you get to use all these other ones. But if you're using PX, you're using inches, all those are fixed. So that's it. So I think you guys can just go ahead and read up and try to come up with something like this. I think that should be all. Just try to read up this. Try. Is there something I'm missing? Okay, just try to read up this. So this is one thing too that you might like to read. Let's say in a CSS you want to import other CSS to like other CSS file inside a CSS. You can import it this way. Let's say while in your CSS file, maybe called style.css, you want to import another CSS sheet, style sheet called maybe tables.css inside here. So you want the designs, sorry, the styles on this sheet to come up here. You can do the same thing by just importing it into this. Yeah, you can always import more than one CSS listing or the CSS file. You can import more than one. You must not use just one. Let's say you have different files for different purposes. So whatever, you can import all of them just here, just the way it is here. So you can add it this way, or you can just import it inside the CSS file, but you have to use the import statement. But this is like the most common way to do it. Can't even remember the last time I used the import groups. But this is like the best way or the most common way to do it to avoid having confusions along the line. That being said, just try out things, play around with things. I introduced you to a new website today called W3 Schools. That's it. W3 Schools. So you might just go ahead there, do a search on whatever you want to do, things that you want to play with and all. And then you can try it out. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.